Now, the best stories don't just summarize events. They zoom into the moment and paint a picture so clear that we feel it like we're right there with you. Now, great storytellers, they take us into the story. And the good news is that it actually isn't that difficult. You just have to know the core techniques and principles of great storytelling. Hi, my name is Hugo Munksell. I am a communication coach, and today I'll share 7 storytelling techniques that will help you bring your stories to life. So people don't just hear them, they actually get to experience them when you're retelling it. Now, before we dive in, let's make something clear first. This isn't a full storytelling framework. A framework tells you how to structure your entire story from beginning to end. What I'm sharing today is different to that. These are techniques, things you can sprinkle into your story to make it more compelling. Think of this video like a toolkit. Whether you're telling a story in a meeting, on stage, or just with your friends, you can use these techniques to grab attention, build connection, and make your story stick. So I'm thinking, let's just dive right into the first one. The first technique is location. Location sets the stage and helps people instantly visualize the moment you're in right now. For example, I was standing backstage seconds before walking out in front of 200 people. Or I was sitting outside the conference room waiting to be called in. Notice how your brain immediately paints a picture. That's the power of location. Now, the number one mistake beginners make is overloading their story, their location setting with too much detail. Describing every object in the room, every color, but you don't need that. You don't have to tell us where every chair was standing. Just enough to transport us into the scene. Most people know what a conference room looks like. And when you set location well, your audience feels like they are stepping into your shoes before the story even begins. And once the scene is set, you don't want it to sit still, right? So you need movement, and that's where action comes in. With action, we want to know what you're doing in that moment. Are you pacing around? Are you scrolling on your phone? Are you wiping sweat off your palms? Are you pretending to read your notes but not actually taking in a single word? Action gives your story forward motion. It's what keeps it alive, essentially. Think about it. If I say I was nervous, you understand my feeling, but it is very, very flat. And it makes no depth for the story. But if you say I kept checking my watch, tapping my foot, flipping through my notes without remembering a single line, suddenly we don't just know you were nervous, but we actually see it and feel it ourselves. Now the listener feels like the story is unfolding in front of them instead of actually being recited afterwards. And that's what makes them lean in. But what really pulls people in isn't just what you're doing on the outside. It is actually also what is going on inside of your head. So the third technique is your thoughts. Sharing what you were thinking in the moment adds depth and relatability. It could be hopes, doubts, or fears. For example, all I could think about was, don't mess this up. Everyone out there is watching. Or if I get this right, maybe I can actually prove to myself that I can do it. When you reveal your inner dialogue, you're exposing the vulnerable, unfiltered part of yourself. And that's what makes people feel connected to you. Without thoughts, a story can feel like it's just happening on the surface. But with thoughts, it suddenly becomes human. Because your audience has probably had those same doubts before. Those same pep talks in their own head before. And when you say them, they instantly become more relatable. And if thoughts lets us into your head, the next piece is to take us into your heart, which is emotion. So the fourth technique is emotions. And here's the key with that. Don't just tell us how you felt. Actually show us. So instead of saying I was relieved, well, say I leaned back into my chair, I felt that tight knot in my stomach finally release, and I let out a long breath that I didn't even realize that I was holding in. The second example makes your audience feel the relief with you. And this works because emotions are contagious. When you describe them vividly, the audience mirrors them in their own body. And that's how stories sticks. They're not just understood, they are actually felt. And since most stories involve other people, there's one simple way to make those characters actually come alive, and that is through dialogue. So the fifth technique is dialogue. So instead of saying my manager praised me, bring this scene to life. My manager looked at me and said, wow, that was the best presentation you've ever given. Dialogue turns your story from a monologue into an interaction between multiple parts. It also breaks up the narration and makes the scene more dynamic. And the best part with this is that people remember words spoken in dialogue far more than a plain description of the situation. But the mistake to avoid is using too much dialogue. I want you to keep it short, keep it very simple and true to how people actually speak. 1 or 2 lines is almost always all you need. If you make it longer than that, the dialogue will feel drawn out and feel too much. So keep it very short and keep it simple. And if you are comfortable with it, try to reenact how that other person actually said it and not just what they said. It makes the dialogue feel so much more alive. By now, your story has a heartbeat, but to keep people actually hooked, you can't just tell it straight through. You need to build anticipation. So the 6th technique is anticipation, of course. Now, anticipation is all about planting little hooks here and there that makes people want to keep listening more. For example, 2 weeks ago, something happened that completely changed the way I look at my career. The moment you say that, the listener leans in, they want to hear more. The brain wants closure. They need to know what happened next. Anticipation works because it keeps people curious. Instead of zoning out, they are now leaning forward, waiting for that payoff, waiting for you to tell them what happened next. And when you finally deliver that payoff, one of the most powerful tools to do it is through contrast. So, the 7th technique is contrast. This is when you set up an expectation and then completely flip it on its head. For example, I walked into my manager's office and I thought that he was going to compliment my recent work, maybe even give me a promotion. But instead he said, we're going to have to let you go. That contrast is what shocks the audience and makes them remember it. Our brains are wired to pay attention when expectations are just broken. It's the same reason why we love plot twists in movies. They surprise us. And that surprise cements the story in our memory. So this was a good one. Hopefully now you feel more sure of telling a story in a compelling way. Let's recap the 7 storytelling techniques once more, just with a quick liner for each one so you get the understanding again. Now the first one was location. Set the stage so we know where you are, so we can actually visualize the situation you're in. And then action. Show us what you're doing to keep the story moving. And then 3, your thoughts. Let us hear your inner voice and connect with your humanity. And then emotions. Don't just name them. Describe them so we feel them too. And then dialogue. Bring other characters to life with real word and real interactions. 6, anticipation. Sprinkle little hooks here and there to keep us leaning forward and wanting to hear more. And then break it with contrast. Set up expectations, then flip it to make them unforgettable. Now remember, this isn't a rigid framework. These are tools you can use in any story to make it richer, more visual and more impactful. And when you start layering these in, your stories stop being summaries of an event and start actually being experiences your audience never forgets. Now hopefully you found this useful, and if you did, hit subscribe. I share new videos every week to help you master the #1 high income skill, communication. And if you want to take this a step further, I have just started my own community to help you with exactly that. You can join that via the link down in the description. See you in the next video. Bye bye.